Good morning, everybody, and welcome to General Licensing Subcommittee. First item on the agenda is nomination of chair.
Nominate Lucy Jennings.
I shall be that, yeah.
Lovely. So, Councillor Jennings, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. We'll start with a brief round of introductions. We go. Apologies first of all.
No apologies.
So we'll carry on with the introductions. Councillors first, please. I tell you what, we'll start again. That's your fault, Justice. Any eight late items to be introduced? I've got none. Any declarations of interest? I've got none. No. Right, introductions. We'll get there now. So we're going to councillors first, then officers, and then everybody else, please. Starting with you.
I'm Councillor Alison Jones.
I'm Councillor Harvey Jones.
I'm Councillor Alan Lindsay.
I'm Jackie Waring, I'm the Appeals Officer.
I'm Anna Walker, I'm representing the licensing team.
I'm Duncan Cray, I'm here to represent the applicant.
I'm Daniel Penman, I'm representing Derbyshire Police.
Lucy Gareth Farrow, Licence Enforcement Officer with Derbyshire Police.
I'm Lucy Keeler from Legal Services, non-profit services. Sandra Axel, Legal Services, non-profit services.
Thank you very much. So the meeting will run very swiftly, hopefully. We don't want to be here all day. What will happen is the licensing officer will give a brief overview of my work. The councillors will be given an opportunity to ask questions of the officer. So will the legal rep, and then the responsible authority, which is the police, will present their case. The councillors and the legal reps will have an opportunity to ask you questions. And then the applicant will be able to give a general outline of what we're here for. And we will be able to ask you questions. Then the applicant again will be able to give a detailed brief of what the issues are, what he was presenting to them. And the councillors will be again an hour that will be able to ask you questions. Then we'll have a brief summary, and then we will ask you all to retire while the councillors decide what actions we're going to take, if any, and we will communicate the result of this hearing to yourselves. Either in writing, well, it could definitely be in writing, but whether it will be today or later, it's really an issue. But normally it takes a little while for us to get it all sorted. Okay. Anne, could you present the case?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. This morning, prior to this hearing, I understand that the two parties have come together. Whether the hearing is now required in its fullest extent, I don't know. Has there been an agreement, or do you want to go through the whole committee?
There has, as it's our application, if you don't mind, I'll explain what's been discussed and what's been agreed and what hasn't. So I'm afraid to say we will have to proceed on some basis. In broad terms, we have agreement in relation to the wrestling. We don't have agreement in relation to the condition, and so the hearing will proceed on the basis of that. Okay. So just to be clear, the position with the wrestling, and I know that not only Fred will, if I miss anything or misspeak in relation to anything, he will. One of these things or last minute things. We've scribbled everything down. But the agreed position is that wrestling as a form of entertainment will be added as a licensable activity. And just to be clear, that wrestling and boxing are not subject to the permissiveness around the Live Music Act, so it's right that they are added as an authorisation on the premises licence. But there will be a condition that there will be no boxing entertainment at the premises. Now, the reason why, I know that sounds a bit of a strange way of dealing with it, but boxing and wrestling are covered under the same licensable activity, and so the only way you can do it is to permit both and then restrict one. And so that's our agreed position in relation to that. There is also, it's not a condition, but my client has agreed that any wrestling events will be age appropriate. That is to say, if they are conducted before 8 o'clock at night, then they will be appropriate for under 18s to attend. And after that time, they will be, they'll have, I guess, to a certain extent, carte blanche within the limits of that particular licensable activity. Now, in terms of the condition, we are in disagreement. And the reason I'm moving to this is there is another condition that you could potentially be putting on there. We are still applying to amend the condition as applied for. The police want to stick with the condition as it is, and so that is really what the purpose of today is now. If you are with us in terms of modifying that condition, then we have agreed to make sense of the agreement that we have with the police. We have agreed that there will be a further condition that no children attending boxing wrestling events, no children will be permitted to attend wrestling events after 20,000.
So I'll present the report that I've got in front of me with the application that's been received, and bearing in mind what Mr. Craig has said. The licensing team received an application to vary the premises licence at Hairy Dog, Beckett Street, Derby, DE11HT on the 7th of July 2022. The application was submitted by Mr. Scott Malcolm. Sorry about the typo in the report. It is Mr. Scott Malcolm, who is the premises licence holder and the designated premises supervisor of the Hairy Dog. Officers have delegated powers to deal with applications where there are no relevant representations received. However, this is not the case with this application, hence attendance at committee today. The variation is to add boxing and wrestling as a licensable activity to the existing licence and to amend condition 31. A copy of the application can be found as appendix 1 in the report. During the consultation period, we received a relevant representation from Derbyshire Constabulary, and a copy of that representation is in the report as appendix 2. We also received a letter of support from the Music Venue Trust, and that is at appendix 3. Prior to the hearing today, we received extra information from Derbyshire Constabulary, which you should have received a copy of, together with a link to a YouTube video. We also received extra information from the applicant concerning the protection of children from harm, and you should have received a copy yesterday. The proposed dates and times for the licensable activity are Monday to Sunday, 0900 to 2300 hours, and the wording of the existing condition 31 to be replaced with children under the age of 18 are not permitted on the premises after 2000 hours, except in the following circumstances: a live performance of an artist or artists' boxing or wrestling events taking place, and 2, they are accompanied by an adult. In the circumstances of 1 and 2 above, they are only permitted on the premises until midnight. A location plan of the Hairy Dog on Beckett Street is in Appendix 4, excuse me, and a copy of the current licence is attached to Appendix 5. I would be obliged if the committee determines the application with a view to promoting the 4 licensing objectives, and in making its decision, the committee should also be obliged to have regard to the national guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the Council's own licensing policy, and the Human Rights Act 1998. The options open to committee are listed at 1.4 in the committee report, which is to grant the application as it stands, modify the conditions of the licence, or reject whole or part of the application. Chair.
I should add, Chair, before my friend continues, in actual fact, that condition will be subject to a couple of amendments as it stands. First of all, I'll read it out for the record. My client, the client, has agreed that all they're seeking is 16 and 17-year-olds, so not all children. So I would propose amending that condition to persons of 16 and 17 years of age shall be permitted on the premises after 2000 hours if 1, a live performance or or a wrestling event is taking place. Taking the word boxing out because would be an absurdity, and they are accompanied by an adult. And then the last bit, in the circumstances of 1 and 2 above, they are only permitted on the premises until midnight. So that tightens that condition up, perhaps provides more clarity about the relative positions of the parties, and so that's really what we're
There's just one matter I think we need to clarify before we go any further. The condition that Mullin and Friends just read out, the amended condition, allows for 16 and 17-year-olds to be present when the wrestling event is taking place after 8 p.m. I was under the impression that the condition we agreed was that they would not be present.
You are correct. I'm still in the same zone, so it would be for the purposes of forgive me, because those conditions would be in conflict with each other, and it would be just for purposes of alarm performance.
So, councillors, if you've got any questions for the officer? Someone?
Yeah.
It's a very unusual meeting at the moment because there's parts that have been agreed and parts that we still need to be actually want to ask questions. So I'm trying to go through the process, which I'm getting very confused at the moment. Well, at the moment, it's the police's turn. So if there's anything else that you want to add to what you want to represent to us, it's your chance to do that.
Thank you. Is there a specific way you'd like to address that? Would you like to have the officer make any observations first and then I'll make some submissions?
That's fine, yeah.
I hope that councillors you will see the statement and the bundle that was submitted on behalf of Derbyshire Police. I appreciate it's a lengthy one, but I hope the statement has helped you make sense of it and direct it to the party. If there are any specific questions that you've answered, of course, please ask. I'll do my best to assist. So if you've seen and read the statement, that's all for this. Is there anything you want to add to the statement?
No, not currently. Obviously, we've had the discussions about the wrestling and the boxing. It's clarity about that, in which we can certainly talk about that. With regards to the rest of it, and the children under the age of 18, that remains as per the statement.
Could I just ask total clarity now on what we are now deciding in black and white?
Shall I take that?
Yes, she's.
Because I think we're all a little bit confused now.
On the original application, perhaps will help everyone who's looking at that document. Page part 3 variation. I think it's the second page of the application. We have the applicant would like to hold the occasional wrestling and boxing. That is now agreed in the way that Fred addressed. So wrestling, boxing, the added to license activity with the conditions that have been set.
No boxing.
No boxing, yeah. No under 18s at wrestling events that take place after 8 p.m.
But can under 18s take place before?
Yes, subject to, clearly there are, you will see from the representations, the wrestling events that were under discussion, advertising events. That's not something we see to put in any condition of the licence or different conceivable condition to deal with. But that's what one of the friends when he said that events would be age appropriate. If there are to be events that are for 18 to over, it doesn't matter whether they take place at 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night. Therefore, 18 to over, it would be appropriate for under 18 to be present. So that, of course, would be monitored in a mutual way. And if no reason to think there would be, but if there were regularly under 18 to be found that it wasn't suitable for them, then of course the court would likely to seek a review of the licence and to have the wrestling permission removed from the licence.
And could you just clarify the under 18? Does that mean is there a minimum age, or is it maybe for example?
With the current licence, it's that any age group is allowed in the premises before 8 o'clock anyway. That's with the current licence. A 5-year-old wouldn't have unaccompanied children in 16 years of age, but if they're accompanied, the current licence states that that's fine for them to be. So
even with this wrestling event, it would be a 5-year-old.
As long as it's age appropriate, yeah, which they'll monitor themselves.
It's the responsibility of the licence holder to make sure that children of a young age are not seeing things that are inappropriate. That's what we usually do for them to monitor it. If they don't, we'll seek a review of the licence so they can't hold those events. So they can't trust them. But that's in the future, that's not something that's the second matter then is the issue of the conditions relating to children. The current position is that the licence says there are to be no children on the premises after 20 hours. That's the condition. The applicant now seeks the condition that was set out to you that persons of 16 and 17 years of age should be admitted on the premises after 20 hours if 1, a live performance is taking place, and 2, they are accompanied by an adult, 3, they're only permitted on the premises until midnight. So that's what the applicant wants. We say things should stay as they are, no children on the premises after 8 p.m. Now, it's important to note at this point, I've been told this morning, I think the representation from the friend, the position of the applicant is that when the condition of the licence uses the word children, that refers to people under the age of 16 and not under the age of 18. Derbyshire Police disagree. We say that the word children means that clearly means people under the age of 18. There are some legal issues surrounding that, but it's important to note that you do not need to decide that issue today. No one is asking you to decide what the word children means in the current condition today. You're being asked to decide whether the condition should be changed and once or left as it stands. I don't know if friends make it as he feels that you do need to make that decision.
No, I don't think there needs to be a legal determination, but the wording of that condition will, as it stands, will form part of my submissions in terms of its enforceability, etc. So it is a relevant consideration, but I agree that it doesn't have to be a determination as to the law at this point in time. We're sort of on the same page, but I will be making submissions about the appropriateness of that condition, given what the guidance says.
I'll perhaps come back to that in more detail later on. Does that assist with what the issues are for determination by the applicant?
Is there any clarification on that? Yes.
Could I set out the applicant's position that may assist?
Not at the moment. So,
No.
Selma, have you got any questions for us?
So that assists with what is this to be determined. Can I perhaps move on to talking about why it is that we oppose the alteration? Yes. So I am going to start, having said that we do need to address it. We'll start with the current condition. We say the current condition is clear that children means those under the age of 18. That can be seen as reflected in, I say, Derbyshire's policy, where there is reference to age restrictions for children other than at 18. One of the example conditions given in Appendix 4. I say it's clear from the guidance, the Section 182 guidance. It's also clear on the face of the existing licence, because if you look at the conditions as they are there, condition 30 specifies children under 16 must be accompanied by an adult. Now, if children meant those under 16, that would be projected, it wouldn't need to be there at all. Condition 31 says no children permitted on premises after 20 hours. So, what I say about those two conditions plain on is that those imposing conditions mean for children to be under 18. The men under 16, the church says that the same is true of the licensing act. I'm not going to take up through every provision of the licensing act. What my friend would say is that Section 145(2) of the licensing act specifies that in that section, the word child means people under the age of 16. That is a section that creates a freestanding offence, regardless of conditions in the licence or otherwise, of having children under the age of 16 in a specific type of premises. Every other reference to children in that act, and every other reference to children in that part, referring to the sale of alcohol, the supply of alcohol, sending children to buy alcohol, and so forth, refers to them as being people under 18. So we say it's plain that as it stands, the licence prohibits people under 18 being in that premises. So why shouldn't that change? Well, we say there are two reasons primarily. First of all, we say it's not a safe place for children to be under 18. I'm not going to go into every detail. If there are incidents that we want some clarification, please do ask. But there's the extensive list of incidents, including violent incidents, 38 in total, that's found on page 58 of the document submitted. Those are incidents which I say should cause real concern for having children present in that place. The number of assaults taking place over the course of the last 12 months is a safety concern for children.
I just ask, we've got this list,
Is that a fair representation in that area as opposed to other pubs and other drinking establishments? What sort of figures are we talking about in another area? So I can ask the opposite.
Yeah, certainly. So that amount of incidents for a city centre vertical drinking establishment is probably quite normal. We would see that many incidents and say, right, so you have these incidents, how are you dealing with them, how are you controlling them? And that's why we make our visits, and we'll go and we'll do licensing checks and look through their paperwork, look through the risk assessments they've got in place, etc., etc., etc. And we would say an adult can make an informed decision to go into a premises like this, and as long as the premises are holding the 4 licensing objectives and putting things in place to try and limit what's happening, there are always going to be incidents involving alcohol in the premises as such. So yes, pretty normal. There are premises in the city centre with a few more than that. There are premises with less than that, substantially less than that. Any thoughts like so yes, it's a normal amount of incidents. What I would say is the premises that have that amount of incidents and violent incidents, none of them would have children in going into the late night. If, for example, a premises, an eating establishment out of the city centre, where you went, you sat down, you had dinner, and it was an environment where you want your family to go sit and have some dinner and have a drink. If they had incidents of the same level as that, we would be taking action against that premises, if that makes sense, and we do, and have done in the past. So yes, it's a normal amount of incidents to an extent for a city centre pub, but it's whether you believe that children should be subjected to that or not.
Okay. And just on that, you please tell us, sorry. Sorry, was there a question or no? Also, just on that, could you tell them, are there any establishments locally that do allow 16 and 17-year-olds in, and what sort of record do they have?
Yeah, there's another music venue quite nearby who have 16, 17-year-olds in the premises. From the top of my head, I believe they've got 2 incidents in the last 12 months, neither of which were violent, and they have conditions on their licence appropriate. So they do. So although that isn't a sit-down meal, but they will have 16-year-olds in a company to watch music events at the premises, but there is substantially nowhere near the amount of incidents, especially violent incidents at the premises. If that were to change, obviously we collate all the incidents, every alcohol-related incident, licensed premises-related incident. If that were to change, we'd then deal with them exactly the same way as was Saturday now.
So with that overview, the only other thing I should say, that one of the questions that you asked, Councillor, was whether or not it was a fair representation. The answer is yes, with I think one exception. I can't recall off the top of my head whether it's referred to in the list or not. But there is an issue which is referred to as a stabbing. That takes place. It's an issue for the 10th of June 2022. It is clear on the face of the list. It says police attendant are unable to find any evidence for stabbing. So whilst on its face, that's a very serious and uncertain incident. In fact, there was some evidence that that occurred. So it's important to point that out in fairness to the so that deals in a brief fashion with the issue of safety. And as the officers pointed out, there are occasions where appropriate conditions can be placed. If an establishment is one which confident is going to take appropriate steps to the licensing objectives, then they might be appropriate to control the risks imposed by the incidents. The issue is that, as you may have seen from the documents that I put forward, this is not an establishment where we say those steps are being taken and consistently taken. There's the issue of the fire audit, where recommendations were made over a ago for the movement of LPG canisters causing fire risk. That hasn't been done, and accordingly, they've now received notice that says that they are in breach of their obligations. There's the way in which this application was dealt with. Eastern Diamond really what we told us if you needed it, was contacted about this application prior to it being issued as to whether or not he would have a meeting and discuss it. He responded positively and said, yes, I would, and was told, oh, I already submitted the application. So there's been a lack of engagement, a lack of proper responsibility by those making the application to ensure that emerging and licensing objectives engaging with the police in the way that they need to safely have children on the premises. There's also, you may have seen, an under 18s policy and a protection of children from harm risk assessment. I'm sure in your faculty panel members you'll see many risk assessments, many policies over the course of the years. I think it's you to look at them and assess whether you think they are adequate, appropriate, for the establishment seeking to have children in the premises. They are briefing extreme, they are not set out in a fashion. They don't marry up, for example, the risk management strategies to the risks that they are intended to control. They don't assess the level of risk that you ensure from the RID that often appears in risk assessments when you have the level of risk and the seriousness of potential harm. So they give a number and then strategies can be worked out appropriately. These are not appropriate risk assessments to safely have children in the licensed premises way sees. So, in short, those are the reasons why we say this condition cannot be safely granted. It doesn't promote safety in children, it doesn't promote that fourth licensing objective because it's not safe in the first place and the appropriate steps are being taken by the company to make sure that it is safe. Unless I can do any further assistance. So it's this question.
Councillors, have you got any questions? Thank you for the brief. And over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll first of all deal with section 145. I think it is relevant. I'm not necessarily seeking you to make a legal judgment today, but and it's right saying myself and my learned friend disagree on the interpretation of this particular section. But it seems to me, given the ambit of that condition is in relation to people attending the premises, section 145 deals specifically with unaccompanied children, in fact, being prohibited from certain premises. What that clause says, amongst other things, is for the purposes of this section, a child means, this is section 145.2a, purpose of section, a child means an individual aged under 16. And just to be clear, within the context of that section of the Licensing Act, which is under the offences subsection, part of the Licensing Act, somebody who's 16 and 17 is permitted to attend the licensed premises unaccompanied. Now, why that is important for the purposes of today is that the condition as it stands now just says children. And what a condition on a license should be, it's like a clause in a contract. It has to be precise, it has to be enforceable, and everybody, responsible authorities and the licence holder, have to be clear what the intention of that condition is, so everybody knows what they've got to do. responsibilities are. And my view about that condition as it stands, given it is aimed at people attending premises rather than people consuming alcohol, for example, is simply to govern who can and can't attend the premises. And so, taking that argument to its logical conclusion, 16 and 17-year-olds are allowed to attend the premises after 8 o'clock, and in actual fact, taking that further, they are allowed to attend the premises, taking my interpretation of the condition, unaccompanied, in fact, after 8 o'clock, because they are not children. And what we are seeking to do with the amendment in this condition is to provide clarity, to say, and clearly it's implicit in that condition that nobody under the age of 16 can attend the premises after 8 o'clock. And that anybody who is 16 and 17 has to be accompanied by an adult, which I say, and we say, is in excess of the default position for a premises that is licensed under the Act. And so we say we are moving from a situation where the condition is vague, open to interpretation, and of course that presents its own difficulties from an enforcement point of view, because if ever a responsible authority is seeking to enforce it, and it goes as far as a prosecution, the court has to be sure that that condition has been breached. If there's any doubt about that, then that condition can't be enforced, and I would just add to that. If there is any ambiguity about the wording of the condition, established case law is clear that that should be resolved in favour of the licensing. So, what we are seeking to do is to clarify what the licence holder can and can't do. And we say that conditions of summons currently stands is open to various interpretations that don't provide that clarity for everybody, whereas the wording as it stands now is absolutely clear what the licence holder can and can't do. And you're bound to ask the question, why is the licence holder seeking to do this? I'll just talk about these premises for a little while. They've been going, certainly the licence was granted in 2016, so I have been told 10 years, but certainly I would take it as read that it's a minimum of 8 years based on the licence as it stands. It's a live music venue, capacity of 500 in the main live area and 150 in the front bar. It's a member of the Live Music Venue Trust. It's also a member of the Live Music Alliance. They do a lot of collaboration with Derby College, have a recording studio in there, and they are always seeking to encourage younger people to engage with live recording music and what is a grassroots venue. And quite simply, when live music is on, they want the capacity for 16 and 17-year-olds who are accompanied to attend the premises. And we say that is a proportionate step and an appropriate way for venues such as this to operate. There obviously are limitations, such as, for example, they won't be permitted to remain on the premises after midnight. Clearly, it won't be anybody under the age of 16. Premises is simply seeking to have a situation where there's a live music event on, and 16 and 17 must attend that event whilst accompanied. Now, we've been presented with a list. It's a familiar pattern. Presented with a list of incidents, quote unquote, from the premises, which you are being asked to attach significant amount of weight to. Now, I've gone through all of these incidents, and a significant number of them are just people, first of all, making outlandish claims. They are situations where national police have turned up and actually what was described haven't taken place. They seem to me, the majority of them occur outside the premises. And so to suggest there are 37 incidents that are unquestionably correct and verifiable and identifiable to the premises simply doesn't bear any objective scrutiny. And I'll give you an example. I know my friend goes today. This is what we do. A bouncer was pushed me by the throat, kicking off here. The bouncer has pulled a knife. The bouncer has just stabbed somebody. I don't know how bad the stabbing is. The guy's walking away. I mean, the notion that that is in any way correct. Well, if there'd been a stabbing, we know about it. We'd be in a very different position today with regards to this application. Again, there's another allegation of denials on the 14th of August when the police attend. No one is present. You've got, for example, on the 4th of June of this year, police attend, and this turned out the male was reporting to be trying to get into a taxi with random women, so door staff have intervened. That's an incident. That's somebody who's trying to behave on the street, not even any suggestion he's even been in the premises. The police are asking you to include that as part of 37 incidents. I'm not going to go through them all, but there's a number, and obviously you'll get the opportunity. There's a number in there. Someone's mobile phone's gone missing, and they're trying to get inside the premises. Well, that was at all licensed premises. That's not what you could reasonably be described as an incident. I've counted about 4 incidents in this list, and that you could say that seems like there is something that has some substance there. People, when they get, for example, turned away from licensed premises, often behave in a way that's irrational because they feel aggrieved. And so please, I would just invite you to be careful when evaluating these incidents. I mean, I'm very grateful that it's been fair to say that for these types of premises, the number of incidents reported is normal. I would just ask you not to get to attach too much weight to all of these reported incidents, because I think I can say with absolute confidence that some of them will be verifiable, some of them will be accurate, and many of them won't be. And unless matters are properly investigated, anyone in this room could ring up and say, I'm at the Dog and Duck, there's a fight, somebody's been stabbed, and that would go on even if it hadn't happened at all. Or if somebody had embellished things and said there was a mass brawl, in fact it was just an argument outside. So I'm not saying that the police aren't entitled to bring these incidents to you. Of course they are. But they don't speak of a full and accurate and fair reflection of these premises. And what we don't have, of course, is any suggestion of any prosecutions in relation to these incidents. So I suppose really, given what Derbyshire Constabulary have conceded, the premises are normal for a town centre, city centre, licensed premise. And given the limited scope of this variation, is I suppose to ask yourself this question: should 16 and 17-year-olds who are accompanied attending a live music venue, a live music event, be permitted to attend these premises, not for the purposes of drinking alcohol, but for the purposes of enjoying the entertainment being provided? And I guess if the answer to that is no, given these are normal premises, I would just invite you to further ask, what does that say about the city centre? 16 to 17-year-olds can't attend and it's effectively a no-go zone for our company 16 and 17-year-olds to attend a gig. You've obviously seen the policies. I don't agree with Millennium Friends assessment in the context of a licensed premise. And these are well considered. The fact they're on the A form, they don't have the level of detail in terms of a risk assessment that you perhaps get in a factory, for example, doesn't mean it isn't an effective and appropriate and targeted working document. I represent moving licensed processes around the country. There was nothing in this that made. By the way, I get plenty of occasions where I do get risk assessments and say to my client, that's not good enough to go away. For the purposes of what is being sought here, I disagree with the friends' analysis there. He was wrong on, he wasn't trying to mislead them at all, he was, because he didn't know this, he was wrong in relation to the fire. It is correct that those letters were, obviously, the letters were produced by the fire service, and they haven't made any representations today. It doesn't mean Derbyshire can still be entitled to rely on those at all. But those matters have been addressed in full, that they're contained within the letter, and you're awaiting inspection. They've all been addressed. So as we stand here today, those matters have been tackled. So what we have here is simply now an application to modify one condition of the license. We say it's much clearer about what it's about. It's simply seeking that 16 and 17-year-olds who are accompanied by an adult can attend these premises between 8 o'clock at night, midnight, for the purposes of watching a live music event. And I would just invite you, in the context of what the guidance says at 1.16, namely that conditions on licences should be proportionate, tailored to the type of premises that they are imposed upon. They should be not seek to duplicate other statutory requirements, and this doesn't. This actually goes further than the statutory requirement, because they would need 16, 17-year-olds would need to be accompanied, should be precise, enforceable, capable of being met. All those criteria within 1.6. This condition, as it stands, is far more in accordance with the requirements that are set out in 1.6 than the condition as it presently stands, which is, I would respectfully submit, open to interpretation. Nobody wants that. Situations where lawyers are going to be arguing over stuff, asking to do something that's far more enforceable than the present system. So that is the application, Chair. Obviously, we're here.
My on the incidents, as well as the majority of them that reported are after the hours that we're talking about, having 16, I think 90% of them are after midnight, like 2 o'clock. Some of them hours after we've actually closed the
I should have made that point at the end. Thank you. So yes, certainly we say if you look at those incidents, the vast majority are after midnight as well. So that's another matter we seek to be.
At this point, it's open to the councillors to ask questions. I'd just like to kick off with a couple of questions in my head. One question and one word: timing. Projection that you sell as an applicant doesn't look good when the timing of various things throughout the application are in question. So, for example, why did we only get the risk assessment yesterday? This application has been in the process for months. So that's one. Gas canisters. Yes, you say that you've addressed the issue. How long has it taken to have that issue addressed from when it was first raised? And for me, the actual application itself shows that the timing of no prior consultation with the police shows to me that there seems to be a bit of a problem with the way you want to portray yourselves as a responsible venue that is going to be looking after our children, basically. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, certainly. In terms of the risk assessment, I know that there was a request to adjourn this. There was an email that was sent asking to adjourn this, and they didn't receive a response. And I suppose that was feeding into the risk assessment and being certain when it was. I was instructed in relation to this on Saturday, just gone. I think the premises was thinking it would be adjourned. Perhaps their lack of experience should be just a way to take that into account. But certainly I tried to email Gareth over the weekend. Was it the weekend? It was the weekend. And Gareth's unfortunately been on which he put it out to. Well, there's absolutely no, people need holidays, and he's the officer that's dealing with it, and perhaps given the timing of me emailing him, well, that gives less wriggle room. But certainly I want to speak to him on Monday. I couldn't do that, and so we can speak this morning. So certainly in terms of that, in terms of the gas canister, I'll let Nick speak for himself. In relation to that. In terms of the application, I mean, there was some effort engagement. I haven't managed to speak to Peter Conisbee because he was, of course, he sent the original email saying we want to engage with you. But I guess applicants recognise there's a representation period to deal with these things, and certainly it's not like they just whack the application in. The clients just put the application in and sat on it. They did have some discussions with the police. Do you know the reason why they didn't specifically look at the application?
I think we're talking to a guy called Gers who works closely with the Arts Council. I know, like Darcy State Council towards like the culture sector, what trying to do with the city of culture application and stuff like that. He actually suggested to us that he'd been speaking to some councillors who couldn't understand how we were still only 18 plus, and that it would be good for youth culture in the city for us to be able to have under 18s attend gigs so that they start bands and perform on stage and come watch their friends and do workshops and stuff like that. So that's why we decided to put an application.
Yeah, and I would just make the point in terms of we're here today. We've had some constructive dialogue with the police today. I have to concede that happened sooner. That may have been more helpful. But my client hasn't been legally represented prior to this weekend. I've endeavoured to, on their behalf, engage as best I can following that, and just ask you just to take the application as it is today with the efforts that have been made. Not they've instructed me. Not that's necessarily the greatest thing for someone to do, but it demonstrates their purpose and intent. I would like to think I am type of professional with the licensing. I very much try whenever I can to reach some form of accommodation between the forces, because everybody has to work together and go forward, and certainly that would be the case here. But Well, you asked a question about the gas canisters.
So with regards to the gas canisters, we had an inspection whilst we were partway through that inspection and stuff. Had a lot of work going on. And I'll have to admit it slipped through the net on us doing other work again, work basically reopened. But that's why as soon as we had this second inspection by the fire service, as soon as it was brought up, we dealt with it and cancelled it on.
When you say instantly, how long?
It was within 2 days, I think.
I mean, look, this is an open hearing, it's been recorded, fire service are welcome to go down and perhaps you might even record and just invite them. Have you done that?
Yeah, I think they're due this week.
Right, there we are. So, but clearly anything to do with fire safety needs to be tackled in a purposeful way. That's true. What the councillors?
Yes, please. Just a few things. So, I know they're all changed and it's all different now. But
If it helps, it made my head hurt as well.
it's not really worse. So, the initial licensing request was from 9 till 11 for the wrestling to take place. So, initially, the point is you're asking for the children or under 18 to be allowed in the premises to watch an event, whether it be a live performance or a wrestling. Have we discarded the wrestling to operate?
Yes, we have.
Yes, right. So a live performance. So presumably then, do the live performances always finish at 12?
They always finish. The only reason that we ask for midnight is sometimes bands run over from like swapping one band off stage and the next one. No event of live music has ever gone on beyond midnight. It's always like it's normally about 11:30 if the room's entirely devoid of customers and musicians. But on the odd occasion it's gone an extra 10 minutes, but it would never reach midnight.
So then,
Could
does it finish earlier at any point? So sometimes
Yes,
it finishes at 11, and then when it finishes, is the pub closed, or do you carry on just drinking till 3 o'clock?
The live music venue part of the building is.
So it's two separate entities. Okay, so the live venue is a separate entity. Because I've never been in, so I need to understand what we're dealing with. So when the under 18s would be allowed in to watch a live band, it's a separate room. It's all contained in a separate room. And when it finishes. So so my question was, if it finished earlier than 12 o'clock, would that room still be cleared? Or
if it finished before,
because say if your license, if it was till 12,
we would clear that room, and we would also get the under 18s to leave at that time as well. We're only asking that the license that they would be allowed in the premises until midnight. However, when we're selling tickets, it would say that 16 and 17 allowed with an adult until the end of the event.
So they couldn't cross over then after the event into the other room.
Can I make a couple of points about that? First of all, please remember that the suggested amendment conditions, it's only for the purposes of them attending a live music event. So as soon as that's finished, they're going to have to leave the premises. Just any condition needs to be capable of being met. And I think the point about that is it would be impossible to have that condition if you, obviously, all events end at 12. Sweeping around the room while an event is halfway through, asking a company 17-year-olds to leave the premises, it just wouldn't be practical, it just wouldn't work. So that's why it's been framed in the House.
So you would be responsible then for making sure that no bank ran over.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now I know it's in a separate place, because my other question was, how on earth are you going to actually take out the underage people? But now I realise that it's all in a contained place, and the whole room will be clear.
Yes.
And everybody will be absolutely what's the capacity of the venue? 5.
And the other big one. So 6 visitors.
Are there anything shared, so like toilets or anything?
No, there's separate toilets in the library.
So it's complete self-contained? Yeah. So, okay. And have you got fully working CCTV? Is that available for the police if they ever ask for it? I think that's me. Okay.
So, Charlie, they were to ask if there's actually separate entry and exit points, or that we accommodate the children.
In other words, have we got to go through the venue?
Yeah, you have to go through, we can go through the bar or there's a game room, which is where we were planning to direct people in the event that we have these events. That doesn't have a bar in it, it's just like arcade games and pool tables, which would then lead directly to the venue without going through the front line.
What's the capacity for the game team?
60.
Would they have to exit through there as well? And there's kind of a capacity for somebody to get lost in that region.
It's literally directly out the door, at least straight outside the room when you see one of the other. And obviously this job would be attended to the non.
So they'd just be passing through that room to an exit.
Purely to enter and leave the building.
Is the door you enter that room is the door that you go outside directly in front of you? So you just go straight.
I just one other question. So there is the option that people can actually then sneak into the bar because they're walking through the bar to get out.
We're going to have security managing that whole thing area. At all times of those people as we go in.
Just have that walkie talkie.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just want another question.
Yeah.
You may want to ask how the wristbands are going to work.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so there'll be 3 different colours. They have one for under 18s, one for the responsible adult, so accompanying adults, and then one for over 18s. This is so that everyone's got to have some form of colour wristband to be served at the bar, be it for soft drinks or alcohol. So this means that obviously you can have someone taking those off under 18 or vice versa, find one on that. The paper I've written all of that one's on, take it off, it's like there's no repairing it to put it back on. And also this means that we can make sure that we're not letting the responsible adults for these youths become drunk whilst they're in control or looking after these youths. So it's just an extra safeguarding thing to make sure that we're not letting the adult that's supposed to be helping them and not getting drunk because we've not realised this.
Sorry, you say that the wristbands are tamper-proof?
Yes.
So it's effectively like an all-inclusive, so everybody has to have a
Everyone has
wristband.
to have a wristband.
And if you haven't
otherwise
got a
you've got
wristband,
to-
okay.
What's the pros and cons? An adult going up to the bar, children away from him, stopping him buying a drink for like an alcoholic drink.
As you know, I was raised policy of doing the one ID, one drink. So they're only allowed to purchase one alcoholic drink at a time. Obviously, won't be able to one area of someone suddenly coming back from the bar very quickly after fetching on a drink. Also, we're going to have security within the venue.
Yeah, I'm just at the point, the one ID, one drink, I mean, that is a hugely comprehensive step that the premises are taking. So to suggest this risk assessment is inadequate or mine hasn't been, thought hasn't been applied to it. Just saying, it's just one example like that. Disagree with that. The fact it's not a multicoloured risk assessment doesn't make it any less meritorious if it's been crafted in an appropriate way. I would say that's
Okay.
Sorry, one more question. On the on the underage policy at the bottom where it says alcohol prevention policy, anyone believed to be underage holding a drink will be questioned. Is that it? You're just going to question them, you're not going to ask what other further sanctions will be imposed?
your DPS.
Anyone believes to be underage holding a drink, well, obviously there will be if and God forbid, an underage person has ended up with an alcoholic drink, their responsible adult that's with them and themselves will be asked to leave. Obviously, we'll have to inform the police about this, and it'll be recorded in our lost.
And sorry, one more. Well, that seems to find a relevant section, but I think you said in one of the documents that you were going to inform local shops that you're having an event to prevent underage sales. How can you tell me how you're going to police that?
Oh yeah. It's just to let local shops around us know that there's going to be under 18s in the area to be more diligent with their. Obviously, it's not a responsibility that we have. They have their own licenses to adhere to, but it would be just in good spirit of us to inform them that it's going to be a high load of 18s in there, so they can be more diligent.
Are there any specific dates that you have, or can it be any time, or would it be mainly Fridays and Saturday nights? Or is the next specific?
We have events on all throughout the week, to be honest. So obviously, in the event that you grant us that we're able to have 16, 17-year-olds at events, we're probably more likely to put on local bands of those ages in the weekdays, rather than Friday, Saturday night, so that they're able to attend this live music and have a chance to perform and stuff without it necessarily being at the weekend. However, obviously, sometimes with touring acts, it tends to be on a Friday and Saturday, and then that's the event that they don't want to come to with their parents and stuff. It's going to be week-wise, but I feel like we'll actually be able to cater more to the youth and then be able to be creative in a more weekday.
So, yeah, I think that was one of the police's concerns. It's obviously we're a busy city centre. Obviously, that gets lively on Friday and Saturday evening. And I know, my daughter's 22. I still don't like her walking around Derby after midnight, so obviously we have got to think about all aspects. And that I'm guessing that's where the police are most concerned about this weekend.
The majority of larger shows would be on the weekend, but we would like to do things for them in the week, which maybe then steer them to become out of the week rather than we provide opportunities for them.
I think when there is there, I invite to someone with Anne.
Chair, I have nothing extra to add. Thank you.
Would you like someone?
Apologies, Chair, just one last point, just to raise this point, apologies for combining so many questions. Just a quick one. In respect to those documents you've provided, that risk assessment, obviously on the premises licence, you do have, when you've got dispersal policy that should operate. Is it your intention that you want these risk assessment policies to form part of the conditions if it were to be granted by the subcommittee, or just as standalone documents? Because obviously what the councillors may be concerned about is that whilst you say you have these documents, they're not adhered to, there's no bite from the licensing premises licence.
I think that's a fair question, and I think it would be appropriate if they were give an extra technical information. Yes. No, I should have thought that myself. Look, it's my job to try and frame this application in a way that I suppose gets the thing granted, but also it provides a framework going forward. So, yes.
Got anything else to add?
Any more questions? No, simply, I'm not going to go over everything that I have. You carefully listen to what I've got to say. This is simply an effort by the premises, clearly challenging times for the trade generally, but also they want to foster young people to be able to go out and enjoy live music. And I would submit that they are seeking to do that in a way that is controlled, in a way that is reflecting the risks that are attached to that, because of course there are, otherwise we wouldn't be here now, in an appropriate way. And in a way, we say that we'd leave the premises with a condition that was much more restrictive, much less open to interpretation, and is very limited in its scope. It just says simply, if you're 15, after 8 o'clock, you can't come in full stop. If you're 16 and 17, you can come in. Obviously, you can't consume alcoholic drink. You can only come in up to midnight. It's only to attend a live music event, and you have to be accompanied by an adult. There are a number of requirements there that add a layer of protection to this licence. And ultimately, your job, as with any of these hearings, is a balancing exercise between the promotion of the licensing objectives and the legitimate business interests of a licence holder, but also, right to say, the benefits that licensed premises bring to the wider community. And I would submit that allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to attend live music events in this city, in a well-established grassroots premises that has good links to local college and other education providers, it's a good thing. If it's controlled and if it's undertaken in a positive way, it's a good thing for young people to be able to go and watch live music and maybe off the back of that sort of thing, like become musicians or just simply have a life as an adult attending live music events that they can look back and say it started here back in Derby in 2022. So for all those reasons, I would invite you to grant this modification of the condition on what I say is a very limited basis. Thank you for listening.
Anything else to add?
Just two very brief points. You've already heard what I said at the start. First of all, the answer that was given when the detail of the risk assessment was asked for by the council solicitor. What are you going to do if there's an underage person with a drink? That's an example of, that's sort of an example of what this is the detailed risk assessment. It's not what you wouldn't drink. That's an example of inaccuracy. It's not there. It's an answer that's been come out today, whether it's been thought about previously or not. But it's not in the policy, because the policy is to be done. The second matter is there's not one of the friends puts very very persuasive arguments for principle about allowing under 18s to attend live music in the city centre might spark young musicians. If this application is granted, and it says the city centre is a no-go area for under 18. No, because it's about told you there is a venue that under 18s can go to and they can go to safely because it has far fewer incidents than this venue. It's not a no-go zone. The question is this something that can be done safely? Are we promoting that fourth licensing objective, the safety of the children? You'll know the safety of children is a licensing objective. The promotion of music and culture is a law objective, not a licensing. So in assessing whether or not this application is suggesting to focus on the licensing objectives, particularly on the safety of children. Can this be done safely without exposing children to risk? Can you have confidence given the way this application is being conducted, given the way that these policies have been set out, that any of this is going to be followed through on an appropriate manner, children be protected from harm by this application?
It's been an interesting morning, and thank you all for coming and presenting your case. The meeting is finished, and if you want to retire, and the councillors will be able to make it.
So do we hang around or do we go?
Sorry,
I think.
Sorry, if you can leave your email addresses to the licensing officer, any decisions will be made in writing will be emailed to you shortly. But
Thank you.
unfortunately, I can't give you a time frame
No,
on that.
thank you.
The members will now retire to make their decision because of